All right, so I'm really excited to invite Virgil Sweat from Stony Digital here to have a chat. I'll tell you a story. So just about 6 weeks ago, he made a post inside of our group and basically said that he was given a choice. His employer met with him and said, listen, you need to choose our company or your agency, but you can't do both. And he came to the group, let us know what happened, and said, hey, listen, I'm taking my agency full time. I'm leaving my job, this security, this thing that's supported me in growing my agency, and I'm going full speed. And I'll tell you, in the last 6 weeks, it's been really cool to see Virgil's activity on social and the things that he's got going on. There's an era of excitement and life that's happening around him and around his agency. And I reached out to him just to say I wanted to capture this moment in time, because there's a lot of people out there that are probably in a position where they're holding a full-time job, they're doing their agency on the side, and they're just waiting for the right combination of things to happen where they say, you know what, today's the day I'm going to jump into doing my agency full-time. But what's interesting is, Virgil had that ultimatum given to him, and that's what I want to explore today. So, Virgil, thanks so much for jumping in. I'm really excited to hear all the details and all the story, man.
Thanks, Mike. Just want me to start from the very beginning?
Yeah, I mean, what I'd like to actually know about first is the kind of the juicy stuff. So tell me about that meeting. Like, what happened, and how did that go down?
So, I mean, I think it really just came down to the employer they had a certain level of stress, right? And usually, to put things into perspective, usually my days off would be a Tuesday. So I would have Tuesdays off, which means I would plan all of my meetings for the agency on Tuesdays. Well, someone quit on Monday, and I had 2 meetings lined up for that next day, the Tuesday. The employer pretty much caught wind that I wasn't going to be there, and he needed me to be there because he had just lost someone. And I was like, look, this makes me look really bad if I have to cancel these meetings. One was like a national-sized video client. The other was, I forget, but just not my style to cancel meetings, the day of. And he texted me, he's like, listen, you can either come in or you're fired. So at that point, I was like, okay.
Oh.
I told my wife, and she was like, well, you can't lose your job. She was like, I guess you got to cancel your meetings. So I canceled my meetings, and I go into the office that day, Tuesday. And he comes by my office, he knocks on the door, says, hey, he's like really flustered and his face is red. Like, I got to talk to you in my office. Come on. So I go in and sit with him, and he's like, are you not thinking of us as a team, like as an employer? Like, pretty much didn't let me get a word in. And he was just like, look, you can't do both. It's either got to be us or your business. And I was like, so what you're saying is you want me to shut my business down? Like, you want me to close the doors? And he said yes.
Wow.
And so at that point, I had nothing else to say. I just kind of looked at him, and he storms out the room, and that was it. So go back to my desk. My adrenaline's pumping at this point. So I was doing sales in the business, and I hit the phones like I never hit the phones before. Like, I was just using all that anxiety and energy to just, close a sale. Got off of work that night at 7, come home, and my wife could just tell, like, on my face and just body language that I was pissed. And we just sat there and we talked for a minute. We sat on the couch and we just talked about it. And I was like, hey, look, you know how happy I would be if I could go full time in the agency. Like, we're so close already to like hitting that magic number. I was like, here, this is what I want you to do. I'll go and I'll watch the kids for the next hour. I want you to go sit down, look at our bank account. I want you to write down all of our expenses and tell me how much I need to put into our account every single month. I said, once you get that number, come back and let's see if we can do it. And so she comes back and she's got her magic number, and I'm like, okay, I think we can do it. I'm like, do I have your blessing? And she's like, yeah. She's like, you do. She's like, go in there, quit, make me proud.
Wow, that gives me goosebumps just hearing that story. That's awesome.
Man, so that entire night I was just like fired up, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be a full-time agency owner. I think at this point it was like close to 10 p.m. and I was reaching out to some past clients like, hey, just letting you know I'm finally making the jump, going full-time. And I told my wife that I texted those clients, and she's like, hey, she's like, it's 10 o'clock at night. You got to settle down, go to bed. She's like, people need their personal space. I was like, okay. I was like, you're right. And so I go into the office that day and I'm super nervous. I get there early, go ahead and clean my office out and get things packed up. And as soon as I see the boss come in, I go into his office, kind of just follow behind him and I say, hey, we need to sit down. We need to talk. He's like, all right, what's up? I'm like, okay, well, I did some thinking about it last night, talked to my wife, and I'm just letting you know that I have decided to resign. I'll be taking the agency full time. And at that point, he had, no, you know what he said? He said, okay, go. That's what he said. He said, okay, go. So I get up, I go and I grab my stuff, and he's just kind of walking out there. It was a car dealership, so he was just walking in the showroom. And as I was walking out, he kind of had his back turned to me, and I was like, all right, wish you guys the best, wish you the most success, have a good one. And that was it. So I tried to leave, I tried to leave on good terms and do things the proper way, but just kind of giving the cold shoulder at that point. But it felt super good. And looking back at it now, 6 weeks later, I think it's the best decision I ever made.
Yeah. Congratulations. I mean, that's a really tough spot to be in, to be faced with a choice like that. Mm-hmm. And I think you played it awesome. Like having your wife, give you the magic number, right? And I think that that's an awesome way to handle it. And ultimately, congrats on choosing you and choosing your future over it sounds like what was a difficult situation, place to be coming from. That's awesome, man. So these last 6 weeks have been awesome. At least, like I said, from my side, I've been seeing you post about client work you're working on. I see lead funnels that you're launching. I see ads that you're running. I see just conversations that you're having. I see reels that you're posting out there. And this is just the online stuff that I can see. No doubt there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes and conversations that you're having. And I guess, what has the last 6 weeks looked like, in terms of, your activity, but what is that turned into in terms of your ability to hit that number that your wife put out there?
I would say the first 2 weeks was the best. Whenever I was able to make that announcement and tell my local network, like, hey, I'm a full-time business owner now, it's kind of like everyone just came in and supported and, they were super happy for me. And I think something magical happens whenever you draw that line in the sand and you say, hey, this is what I do now. Like, this is my thing. And people kind of respect that. And it kind of brings a new level of awareness to you where people want to come and be a part of what you're doing. And I definitely experienced that my first week. It seems like people who had shown some level of interest in the past finally reached out and, requested meetings with me. And of course, you mentioned that I'm doing the reels and the ads and all the things, like all the marketing things. Of course, I was trying to do all of that stuff when I was employed full time, but I was working 50 hours a week. I mean, that left very little time between managing clients and doing my own marketing. Yeah. So now that I had that time back, I can really focus in and, get the content out, which has been, I guess, the biggest help for me since going full time. I can really put all of my energy into the business. So after the first 2 weeks, that initial excitement kind of died off. And at that point, I had to get creative. And I just kind of focused on what I was already doing. And I said, okay, well, I know this works. Posting reels to Facebook has worked for me. It's been a proven strategy. And just posting to social media in general has worked for me. So I came up with the game. I said, okay, every single day, I'm going to post something. I'm going to bring some level of awareness to either my business or just myself. Like, I don't care if it's Stony Digital. I don't care if it's me posting about my family, because I do that a lot as well. I want people to see both sides of me. But if I can get my name in front of someone every single day, then I stay in the back of their mind. So that's kind of been the game I've played. I just want to post every single day. The lead funnels that I've recently launched, they seem to be doing okay. Still too early to give any definites, but I'll keep posting in the Ignite group and update the group on what happens.
Yeah, I think that posting on Facebook is oftentimes one of the most underutilized and underrated ways to get in front of your target market, right? Like, just like you say, building a personal brand around what you do, staying in front of people. It's free advertising. It's something where if you're just letting people know what it is you do, right? Whether it be personal or business, and ideally both, as you say that, like that's a really strong way to stay top of mind. And I also think that when people hear that you're taking your business seriously, that then they start to take you seriously. And it's not that you can't take your business seriously when you're part-time, but I think there's something in the back of someone's mind always wondering is like, is this really professional? Is this really are they really an expert? We think about the biggest experts in the world, like those experts are doing their thing full time. That's their passion. They show up every single day of the week doing that, right? And so just by definition, I think not focusing on your stuff full time is an indicator, at least a subconscious red flag for people, whether or not they want to deal with you. Or the people who are willing to deal with you in that scenario maybe are expecting a lower price or a discount or some modification to the way that you might work that's ultimately not favorable to you, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So how are you feeling now 6 weeks in terms of being able to meet that number with that your wife put out there at the beginning?
Well, man, I'm happy to announce that I'm doing what she wanted plus more, much more. So
congrats.
Yeah. So I mean,
just the beginning.
Yeah, just the beginning. Definitely not done growing. If the company continues growing like it has these last 6 weeks, it's going to be a crazy year.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what's been your wife's reaction to seeing that unfold?
She's happy. She's way happier. I'm home more with the kids. I'm able to. I like to cook, so I'm able to cook. Like it used to be, I would get home at 7:30 at night, and now she gets home from work at 5, and I'm there. Sometimes I've got supper ready, and you can't beat it, man. It's actually funny because before I made that jump, she was like, yeah, we're close, but you might want to consider getting like a part-time or something. And then after the first month, I was like, you think I still need that part-time?
That's so good. So, I'd love for your thoughts on, let's imagine that you were going to give yourself advice, let's say you've been doing this 6 weeks, and let's say that 8 weeks or 12 weeks ago, you could take yourself right now and say what you know now and speak to that guy that's just, a couple months back, right? Like what advice would you give that guy knowing what you know now?
Number one, make sure you have the support of all the people around you. So if you have a wife or a fiance, girlfriend that lives with you, make sure you have their approval first. That's the biggest thing, because it's going to be very hard to do or to be successful when you don't have that support. Number two, I would say, is probably finances. You may want to have some kind of security blanket underneath just in case things don't work out, just to pay, a couple months of expenses. But also, we talk about monthly recurring revenue. It's a wonderful thing. But the biggest thing is make sure that monthly recurring revenue is close, or if not, what you're already making at your current job. I've kind of figured, right before I made that jump, my recurring revenue was right at what I was making in the full-time job. I'm pretty sure I grossed about $4,000 more in the business than I did on my W-2 for last year. And so I think that's a pretty clear indicator that things are going well enough. Like the business has grown to a point where if you were to take the energy that you're putting into that full-time job and put it back into yourself, then you're probably going to be okay.
Yeah.
So those are the things that I would tell myself. And if you're at that point and you have the approval of your significant other or whoever, when you jump in, be ready to go all in and to put all of your energy into it. You'll have to work it just like you do your normal job. You've got to work like your life depends on it. And that's because it does.
Because I think one of the ways that people look at it, and maybe this was you, it's like, okay, if you're making as much in your agency as you are in your full-time job, the idea of leaving it, one way to look at it is I'm getting a 50% pay cut, right? The day that I quit, suddenly everything drops by 50%. And at the beginning, when you don't have the agency revenue coming in, it all just feels like, oh, cool, I'm just getting extra cash coming in. And over time, you start to depend on that, right? Like you're depending on the fact that I've got my full-time job and I've got my agency, and that's what I need to make. And so if you're always looking at it as you're getting a pay cut when you leave your agency, well, then you'll never leave, because it becomes more and more difficult because your life starts to revolve around this new amount of cash that's coming in. And
Right.
I think the part that people miss is, you were scheduling, it sounds like one day a week with your clients, and then there was probably stuff that was happening after hours, before hours, and on other days, right? To try and fit this stuff in.
Right.
And so if you can double your W-2 salary with basically one day a week plus some extras, or and nights and weekends and that kind of thing, what can you do with a solid 5 days, 40 hours a week, if that's what you want to commit to at first? Like, there's quite a lot. And I think that's what you have to realize, is that if you've been able to do that in 1 week, what if you could take every day that week and multiply it by 5 days, and then be on the way to whatever revenue that you ultimately want. And because that's what I look about in your situation. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but like, my guess is if that employer didn't give you that ultimatum, that today, right now, you'd be in the office working right now for that job.
I think so. I think so. I think I needed that push. I don't think I had the courage without that push to make that jump. And that's just because I wasn't aware of what it was like to actually go full time in an agency. But now I do. I mean, I just kind of took that chance. I just knew deep in my heart that I couldn't continue to live that lie anymore. I'm sitting at that desk for 10 hours a day. And I pretty much just said, screw it. If I've got to hurry and find something else, or if I've even got to lose my house, dude, I really don't care. And that's kind of where I was at. Obviously, I didn't want to, which made me push extra hard, but yeah.
Yeah. What a blessing, really, to have had that situation and to see how it's paid off now. It's really, really cool to see. It's like I was mentioning, when I was a kid learning to swim, right? Standing on the edge of the pool, my dad sees the confidence and knows that I can swim, but I don't believe that I can swim. And he gives me the gentle nudge into the pool. I mean, maybe not so gentle, but here I am in the pool figuring out how to swim and realizing, I actually do know this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And, some people learn to swim, though, without that push. And some people start agencies without that push. But having that, I think, is just a really fortunate event that now you're getting to see the success here, because, seeing you in our community and seeing what you were up to before this transition, I mean, I could see it. I'm like, this guy's got it together. He's professional. He knows what he's doing. And it's just a matter of time before he makes that transition. And I know you've shared, even before the transition, like how close you were, and that was your goal. But I'm just excited to see that it's happened and what has kind of come as a result of that.
Man, it's been amazing. I've got my weekends back. I think for the last, no joke, probably the last 7 years, I've worked every single Saturday. And since going full time, it's amazing having my Saturdays back.
Fantastic. And I'll bet the kids love that too, having their dad back.
Yeah, man, I've got so much more time with them.
What does the future look like for you? What are your goals as you move into your first year of working in your agency full time? Yeah.
So I think first goal is to get the agency to a point where it's like $15K a month recurring. I think that's a good starting point. That's a good milestone for me right now. I'd like to finish this year. This is all monetary, but I think I'd like to finish this year $300,000 this year gross. And long-term goal, talking like 5 years into the future, I think I would like the agency to get big enough to where I can support employees, maybe around 5 people on my team. And I really just want to be able to give back and build a culture and a job for other people that they love, and they love waking up to and going to their job every single day.
Fantastic. Well, you're well on your way to that, man. I'm just really proud of you and the work that you've done, and just getting to kind of sit on the side and see what's going on. It's been a real pleasure. So I just really appreciate you sharing the story. I know it's going to be really inspiring to a lot of folks that are in the position of looking to make that transition. And heck, I mean, it's even inspiring to me from where I'm sitting. So well done, man.